The hit musical Hamilton has been infiltrating my brain lately. I've been watching it a bunch, listening to the soundtrack a bunch, and this has brought me to Assassin's Creed once again to look at some history. Now, of course, since I'm watching a musical that's pretty much about the American Revolution, it only makes sense that I'm playing Assassin's Creed Unity. What? Someone expected me to play Assassin's Creed 3. I'll get to that one eventually, but Assassin's Creed Unity, French Revolution, sounded really good. There's a couple small references in Hamilton to it, and I was interested. So, Assassin's Creed Unity came out in 2014. It is the 8th game in the Assassin's Creed series. I decided today I was going to take a look at it and add it to my game list. The story of Assassin's Creed Unity uses the French Revolution as a backdrop, although arguably the plot doesn't necessarily revolve around it. The important figures in the game are assassins and Templars, and it plays out actually a little differently than games of the past. So you play as Arnaud Dorian, who ends up jailed after being framed for the murder of Monsieur de la Serre, which sucks because this is the guy who raised Arnaud since his dad passed away. So this is pretty much equivalent to losing your dad twice. That's pretty rough. But being in jail turned out to be a blessing, as this introduced Arnaud to an assassin, and that ended up being an introduction to the Assassin Order. This trek is also how Arnaud learns that de la Serre was a Templar Grand Master, basically the head honcho, and then it turns out that de la Serre's daughter and Arnaud's love interest, Elise, is the new Grand Master of the Parisian sect of the Templar Order. However, it is not Elise and it was not de la Serre that was causing problems with the assassins. It was a different group inside and outside of the Templar Order that not only ordered the hit on Monsieur de la Serre, but is also fighting with the assassins. Overall, the story has some solid twists and turns, and I like this take of assassin versus Templar. Arnaud is able to work with Elise, the Grand Master, instead of only war with all Templars as we have seen in Assassin's Creed past. There's a little bit more camaraderie here. Now, while it is interesting and it's different, I can't say I like it 100%. I wanted to see some more history of who's winning the Assassin and Templar war, and that didn't really happen here. Instead, in modern day, it still just has the Assassins losing. They're always losing in the modern day, but we don't see how or why in any clear way. I did love the French Revolution being the backdrop, however, and really enjoy how Assassin's Creed brings that history together with the Assassin and Templar story at the forefront. I've said a lot about the story already. I'm sure there's more I could say, but I'll say it by giving the story of the game 54 points. Anyone who has played the earlier Assassin's Creed games have a familiar memory of jumping around various historical cities and then accidentally face-planting right into the ground. Now, there is a lot of fun to be had with the parkour, but Assassin's Creed Unity does try something a little different with a kind of up or down option. You now hold a button that tells you whether you specifically want to go up or down, instead of letting the game just kind of imagine it for you. This sounds kind of stupid, honestly, but it actually is useful when you're playing the game and when you have multiple places you can go. Otherwise, movement in this game is pretty simple, a lot of climbing and moving around to get to different places. It is a pretty fun system, and the rooftops of Paris help with it quite a bit. The city itself is also pretty well populated, so walking around can be fun as well, just to see all the different people and how full it is. You can also enter buildings through doors and windows, so sometimes the fastest way to your destination ends up being through, the doors and windows, which can be a lot of fun. Overall, I really did like the movement. It's pretty standard for the series, but still has some unique elements that are really fun. I'm going to give the movement 57 points. Now, swords are a major weapon choice in the Assassin's Creed games, and in Unity the choices are plentiful. You can have a long sword, a pickaxe, a hammer, a regular sword, and let's not forget all the gun choices, from different types of pistols to different types of rifles. Combat is pretty intense in this game if you take advantage of those mechanics. Enemies vary a little bit between normal, heavy, quick, kind of standard enemy types. All of this allows for some variety in the gameplay, again, if you fully utilize the mechanics. The problem is, I didn't really fully utilize the mechanics. I pretty much stayed with the standard sword throughout the whole game, upgrading it sure, but I didn't use other weapons. My pistol, sometimes I pulled it out, but honestly it was easier for me to go in with the sword, or of course my trusty hidden blade. I wanted to use a wide variety of items, but honestly, with the purchasing system the game employs for getting the items, I just didn't want to get involved in it. It was a lot to kind of go through, read all the stats, look at all the different weapons. It just wasn't fun for me. I didn't hate the combat overall, and with the different enemy types, I did get a little bit more of the variety that I'm looking for when fighting in an Assassin's Creed game. This let me, like I said, not hate it, but I just got kind of overwhelmed with those weapons and all the choices, and eventually just was uninterested in that part of the game, and just wanted to fight the different enemies. Now, with all of that being said, I want to give combat 43 points. This is the second Assassin's Creed game on the PS4 and Xbox One generation of consoles, so one would hope that the game looks good. And those hopes are somewhat answered, thankfully. When this game came out, it was pretty widespread meme to talk about all of the bugs in this game, especially graphical glitches. I have to say though, overall playing through it this time, in 2020, things look pretty good. There are some frame rate issues to be aware of, including some kind of annoying stuttering. But I didn't run into it too often, and overall the city of Paris itself just looked good. The landmarks all looked familiar, as much as somebody who's never been to Paris can tell. And I enjoyed exploring overall. Especially like I mentioned before with going into the buildings with the windows and doors. It was cool, the attention to detail that was placed there. Cutscenes with characters, however, could have looked better in my opinion. There just always seemed to be something a little off about the characters. I can't even place my finger on it. They didn't look horrible or out of style for the game, just off slightly. But I didn't let that ruin my experience running around Paris, and because of that, I'm going to give graphics 43 points. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, I am a huge fan of the Assassin's Creed series. However, this doesn't mean I absolutely love 100% of the games or think they are all 10 out of 10 best games ever. And honestly, Assassin's Creed Unity is going to be one of the first examples of that for me. With the story at 54 points, movement at 57 points, combat at 43 points, graphics also at 43 points, the total for this game is 197 points. This is spot 22 out of 36 on my game list, and that ends up being just below Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, just above Gears of War 2. Now, it is a good game in my opinion, and one I recommend people play. I'll admit that might be a little bit of my fanboyness for the series, but I do think it's a pretty good game. I do think you should play it, especially if you're a fan of the franchise. Just looking at each of its parts, it's not the best game in the series, or obviously the best game on my game list. But hey, that's all I got for today. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching this video. If you like what I do, drop a subscribe, maybe like and comment on this video. You can also follow me on Twitter, which that's going to be in the description down below. Thanks again for watching, and I really hope you have a good one.